And I think that this is where maybe the nest idea of family, where you're trying to protect the chickies, is different from what it says in Psalm 127, that children are like arrows in the hand of a
Right.
warrior. And I think that you really had a vision for that. We're sharpening arrows to destroy the works of the enemy. Like this is
Yes.
this. So when you begin to think about children that way, like we're building an army. We're not trying to like build little chickies so they can live their best life. Like we don't know. We're here to make sure Satan lives his worst life. Like we're here to take on that, to push against the boundaries of the kingdom of darkness and bring the kingdom of light into the world.
Hi, welcome to Jeremy Pryor's podcast, or what I like to call Jeremy Pryor Unfiltered. I'm his daughter and producer, Kelsey Gall, and we are excited to bring you seasons of content all the way from Tolkien to theology, from business to family. If you like to contemplate deep philosophical ideas across a wide range of topics, you've come to the right place. Make sure you give us a follow so you don't miss out on future episodes.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Jeremy Pryor and the April Pryor podcast. We're coming in hot from all of our crazy day. How you doing today, April?
Good. Yeah, I'm currently hot and sweaty. It's like a 86-degree day or something, and I was helping somebody move. So I'm trying to cool down in this beautiful AC.
Yeah, and we did our Orange Theory hour with Sydney. So I have agreed to do 1 hour a week of Orange Theory, which is not at all what April's rhythm is. What is yours up to now? What are you doing?
About 4 days a week, 4 times a week.
Amazing. Yes. So anyway, once a week is good. Is Sydney going to do that is she going to keep going, or is she just dabbling?
Well, she has 1 more left on the pass I got. I got her a 5-class pass,
Okay. Nice.
and so she was gonna try to do 1 more to finish that off, and then we'll see if we can talk her into something.
And I'm hearing the sounds of Jackson building my epic hobbit hole doghouse outside. You guys get ready. I'll take a picture and show it once he's done. But I'm very excited. So this is my journey towards possible dog ownership. Possible dog ownership.
Yeah, we don't have a dog.
No.
We don't have
Yeah.
a dog yet.
Got to start somewhere.
But we have
Yeah. Yeah. Stay
baby
tuned for that.
steps.
That's right. But we've got the yard, we got the fence, we got the doghouse going in. It's gonna be awesome. Someday Winston will arrive, and
We have a name,
that's right.
dog's
Yes.
house, and a name, but no dog.
Yeah. Someday we'll be doing a lot of traveling,
Yeah.
so I'm excited. I'm very much a dog person. April is less of a dog person. Awesome. So
Slightly.
I'm working through the different chapters, different sections of this book, The Ruling Household. And I'm excited to talk to you guys about this and get April's take on this. I've been diving deep into Noah, and so I want to read this section. April, get your thoughts and kind of dive into this. So there's several sections I'm working through and trying to understand, and kind of the premise of the book is I'm going through primarily Genesis and understanding the nature of the ruling household. What are the sort of small but critical building blocks you kind of see inside of the narratives of each of these stories? And so we did a deep dive into Adam and Eve, into Cain and Abel, and now we're at Noah. So I'm going to read this and then get your take and see where this goes. So the title of this is How Noah Can Help Your Family Discover Its Unique Family Mission. Noah, a father prepared for apocalypse. This is a quote from Genesis 6. But Noah means, do you know what Noah means, April, in Hebrew?
I think it means something about rest
Yeah.
or
Rest.
yeah,
Oh, part of
like a
what
nap.
yeah,
And
a quick nap. Part of what I want to tease out is a lot of the symbolism in the stories in Genesis are actually contained within the names, the meaning, the Hebrew meaning of the meaning of the Hebrew names. So, okay. But Noah, rest, found favor in the eyes of the Lord. These are the generations of Noah. Noah was a righteous man, blameless in his generation. Noah walked with God, and Noah had 3 sons, Shem. So the word Shem in Hebrew means name or fame. Ham, which means warmth, and then Japheth. which means expansion. Okay, so those are his sons. No father faced more danger than Noah. Imagine the odds. Everyone in his entire generation died. Only he and his family survived. The world is a far more dangerous place than most of us living at this time in history in the West care to contemplate. One asteroid, one super volcanic explosion, one engineered virus, or one more world war could reduce the human race to a small fraction of its current size. And if none of these disasters strike in your lifetime, consider the lives of your children, grandchildren, or great-grandchildren. How can a father hope to protect his family? Isn't it hopeless? We're given a model in this man of rest, Noah. In Noah, we discover some of the greatest secrets to building a strong, multi-generational family in the shadow of a coming apocalypse. Noah found favor by remaining blameless as he walked with God. Noah partnered with his adult sons to protect their future family. Noah never saw himself primarily as an individual. Even as we're introduced to the story of Noah, we learn it's not about Noah, but, quote, these are the generations of Noah. We learn that this story is not just about Noah and not just about his children, but it's about all of us. As Peter writes, quote, God's patience waited in the days of Noah while the ark was being prepared, in which a few, that is 8 persons, were brought safely through water. Baptism, which corresponds to this, now saves you, not as a removal of dirt from the body, but as an appeal to God for a good conscience through the resurrection of Jesus Christ. All of our stories are nested inside of Noah, since we are all his spiritual descendants, having undergone baptism, and we are all his physical descendants, having come from his family line. Some of us come from the fame of Noah, Shem. Some of us from the warmth of Noah, Ham. And some of us from the expansion of Noah, Japheth. Noah is also the first full family narrative we get after the story of Adam and Eve. And we learn much about how God views family after the fall from the narrative of Noah. We learn how the father determines the fate of the family, how adult children can partner with their father's vision, and how the father can bestow blessings or curses on all of his future descendants. Let's look at each of these principles and ways we can apply these lessons today. Okay, first, how a father determines the fate of the family. The book of Genesis is the greatest multi-generational epic in history. There is no individuals in Genesis. Every person is a part of a family line, and we are given enough details to trace the spiritual DNA being transmitted from generation to generation. Genesis 5 exists to give us an account of Noah's spiritual DNA. He came from the godly line of Seth, who was in the likeness of Adam, who was in the likeness of God. He came from the line of Enoch, who walked with God. And his father Lamech, who lived 777 years, gave him the name Noah, rest, and proclaimed over his life this blessing, quote, out of the ground that the Lord has cursed. This one shall bring us relief from our work and from the painful toil of our hands. Genesis 5:29. So as we turn to chapter 6, we're not surprised to see Noah finding favor with God. While the rest of the world is drowning in the rebellion of Cain and the corruption of emerging demonic human hybrids, Noah is walking with God like his forefathers. But what should a father do who lives in a wicked generation? How do we build a multi-generational family in the shadow of a coming apocalyptic event that will destroy the world? The first thing we learn is that every woman and child in a family with a corrupt father was doomed. The only wife and the only children who had a chance to avoid what was coming were under the protection of a father who walked with God. That's hard for our Western, hyper-individualistic ears to hear, but it's clear from the story of Noah that as the father went, so went the family. But God sees Noah's devotion and is determined to save him, and he starts by giving him 3 sons, the perfect team to accomplish his family mission. Okay, so here's the tool: how to find your family's unique mission. God gave every family the 5-part mission to be fruitful, multiply, fill, subdue, and rule. Jesus gave every one of his followers the mission to be fruitful and multiply through discipling the nations. But God also hands out unique missions to families. Noah is a perfect example. Noah lived in a strange time at the end of an age, and his family's mission was to survive and to ensure the survival of the animal kingdom. God added to the general Genesis 1:28 mission, those 5-part mission, a special family mission to preach and prepare for the coming flood. I'm often asked how a family might discover if they are stewarding a unique mission. At our family teams workshops, we facilitate that discovery by having participants journal through these 3 questions. Number 1, is there a problem that really uniquely bothers you? There are countless problems in the world, so why does this particular problem seem to strike you personally? That's a good indication that this is not just a problem, but your problem. We read that, quote, Noah warned the world of God's righteous judgment, 2 Peter 2:5. He saw and took personally the rebellion of humanity in his day. If there are issues that you can't stop thinking about or that elicit a strong emotional reaction, that is often an indication of the seeds of a unique mission. Number 2, are there experiences in your past or your family's past that are especially meaningful to you? Our past can often be a map pointing the way to our future. Western people often see time as only linear. It goes in one direction. But in the Hebrew mind, there is a cyclical nature to time. Themes repeat. It was no coincidence that Noah was in the line of Enoch, the man who walked with God. Are there people, events, trials, or places that God has woven into your story in a unique way? These can lead you to the unique discovery of a unique mission. My wife and I met in Jerusalem. We could have written that off as a coincidence, but we saw that God had placed that location into the foundation of our relationship, and therefore it holds a special place for our whole family. Our family has a special mission to that city, and we spent years in Jerusalem as a family seeking and stewarding this calling. We have friends whose marriages survived through the sin of adultery, and now, whenever they hear that someone discovered their spouse has been unfaithful, they snap into action, ministering to that family and giving them hope that's possible to survive this sin and make it to the other side. Their past has given them a mission for their future. Number 3, but maybe my favorite question to uncover our mission is to look at who God has blessed our family with to discover our mission in the unique makeup of the members of our family. God is sovereign over bringing together a husband and wife. Quote, therefore, what God has brought together, Matthew 19:6, and God is sovereign over the womb, says in Genesis 30, verse 22. So why did Noah have 3 sons? Would having 3 daughters create an identical family? Imagine if Noah had only daughters, and when they came of age, married them off to other families and was left to build the ark all by his lonesome. Would God be in heaven scratching his head thinking, man, if only Noah would have had sons, but what can I do about the random chances of gender at conception? No. God gave Noah 3 sons because it was necessary for Noah to have sons to accomplish his unique family mission. This is also true when we consider the gift of a spouse. A married couple is no longer 2, but 1. One newly married man I was mentoring had a dynamic ministry when he was single, but he continued on the same mission after he was married to his wife, and his kids were being and felt left behind. We walked through an exercise of uncovering what kind of ministry he and his wife would be most effective at if they were to work together. It was substantially different from his individual ministry, but we recommend that he dial down the unique efforts and intentionally dial up team efforts instead. A basic part of being a father or mother is to do ministry in and through your team and not primarily through solo efforts. I think it was Mike Breen who first pointed out that we can think of mission as an individual pursuit, what he called family and mission. We can abandon all mission beyond the home and embrace family as mission, or we can pursue mission together or family on mission. During the missionary movement of the late 19th and early 20th centuries, families were trained to think of their missionary work as the individual calling of the father. Countless missionary children were sent to boarding schools, and wives were frequently abandoned at home or in strange regions for months or years at a time. It was the golden age of family and mission. It destroyed the faith of many of the children in the next generation. One of the most wonderful joys of my current life is seeing my adult children vastly expand the family mission as their gifts and passions are integrated into our expression of our family mission. No child was given to your family by accident. Their gender, their personality, their interests, and their special needs are all indicators of the kind of assignments or mission God is giving to your family team. Take time with your spouse and journal through the above 3 questions. And as you discuss the answers, take a stab at writing a unique family mission statement. Give your team something to aim at and to work together. Okay, so that was a long one. So April, yeah, what kind of struck you from that part of the book?
Oh, there multiple things. One was just this morning, I was pondering on how we met in Jerusalem and just how crazy that is and what that has meant for our, calling, or like the fact that that was an interest that we both had before we met each other, and then meeting each other there, and that the Lord has allowed us to have a part in some way, which I still don't know long term what that's gonna look like, but at the very least, we are very familiar with Jerusalem and love it and know our way around, and, have introduced a lot of people to it. Jerusalem specifically, I think we know a little bit of the rest of the country as well, but so I was thinking about that and how God can put places in your family's kinda DNA, and that's just interesting.
Yeah.
Geographical location. Seems like that matters to him
Yeah. Yeah.
somehow.
I really don't think it's important not to blow off if there's some part of the world, if there's some city in your own country, if there's some like if there's a location that you just feel connected to, an affinity to, a lot of energy around, a lot of interest in, pay attention to that. Like I think that's a big deal.
Yeah. There are several other things I should have been taking notes. Like the idea of, oh yeah, okay, God putting people on your team and who entrusting him with that. I definitely feel like I grew in my belief in that, or even just my understanding that that was a thing, probably around kid number 3. We didn't find out what we were having for our first 3, but we did with our number 4 and 5. But the surprise that came with each one, with the like grand reveal during the birth, that I know a lot of people don't do that anymore these days, but there was something about that that just made the actual, like, unveiling all the more exciting and, like, a part of, I don't know, like, the epicness of giving birth to someone and finding out at the same time who, like, their gender. It's like God is like, "Ta-da! Like, here's this here he or she is, like, the next one." And I think with our number 3, that birth, I was like, "Wow, this is crazy." He's giving us another girl as our second daughter, and but then also, like, as time went on and we ended up having a 3rd daughter and a 4th daughter and no other boys, just 1 boy, I I remember kind of, like, wrestling with that because I feel like I thought we were gonna have a lot of sons because we're so, like, we believe so much about, like, carrying on the family name and making sure that, like, our family makes an impact, and, like, that to me, that just somehow was connected with carrying on the family name. And to only have 1 boy, it just feels like you're hanging on by a thread, like, Jeremy's dad was an only child, and then Jeremy's the only boy, he was the only son, and then now our son's the only son, so the prior name was, like, hanging on by a thread, and so part of that for me was like, well, it's God's choice to make people's names great or not, and so I don't need to worry about our name. That's up to God, like, however that matters to him and however carrying that on, what that means to him. I don't fully understand eternal significance of that, but they're having daughters, I felt like at that time we were around a lot of young couples that the women in particular were struggling. We were kind of like the pattern had been for a long time of like the guy struggling in some way and women being like more like emotionally stable and having, like, handling their education well and, like, I don't know, and then we started just experiencing some, like, mental illness in women and seeing some just, like, so many homes being broken and how it affected daughters and just the sadness that's there and how hard it is to overcome those things when you are trying to start your own family and those things, and I felt like the Lord was kind of saying, or I don't know, like, reassuring me, like, I need you to raise godly young women for the future generations. Doesn't matter about their last name, but I need them so that we can propel families forward with young women who know who they are, who, are able to put themselves in other people's shoes, who, know how to resolve arguments, who, all of these things that you're taught from your parents. And when you're a loved daughter, you can relax and learn these things, in a safe environment. and you take them into your future, and it's like a gift to your future son-in-laws.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I
So,
oftentimes I think when I think about the genders when it comes to daughters and sons, it seems like I think about sons a lot from the perspective of expanding the family, and I think about daughters in terms of like strengthening, maximizing the family. Those are very rough categories, but I think that I had a friend who had all daughters, and I said, "Well, look, like he's like, is that like God, like shutting something off in my family?" And I'm like, it could just be God wanting to maximize a vision that you have. I mean, it's like I think that there's a lot of what daughters do when they're a part of the family. Obviously, when they are married and they start their own branch of the family, this shifts. But while they're in your house, like really work to maximize if you're max like whatever that vision is, because you've got these helpers, like a whole army of them, you know. And man, watching daughters and fathers work together as they're getting in, as the daughters are getting into like this, this place in their life where they have a lot to give. I think that's one of the coolest things. Now with sons, sometimes you don't want to do that. Like you're like, I don't want to like they need to really have a more expansive energy. I know there are times where sometimes sons partner with their dads and it becomes this amazing, you know, symbiotic relationship. So these are all very rough categories, but I've seen both of those things play out, as patterns a lot where somebody with a lot of sons, 10, 20 years later, there's just tons of expansion that's happening. And then somebody with a lot of daughters, they bring the family together. There's a lot of like relational continuity. Oftentimes, like,
hospitality.
yeah, yeah, hospitality. I remember RA said that about, when you have daughters, they want to live by their mother because they're raising the kids, they're spending so much time. So they oftentimes geographically center the family a little more than sons. Again, rough categories, but yeah, but I do think it's important as you guys are listening to this. I don't know what kind of family makeup you're looking at, but what, we're describing is that I think that there's clues in the genders. There's clue, and that's just one aspect. There's also like talents or special needs that your family might have as you look at the makeup of your family. And then of course, it's really important to understand the dynamic between the spouses. Like that, like how does that play out and how does that inform the family mission? So like even, this podcast, part of what I'm excited about is because April and I enjoy doing this together, like this is going to get a lot more of my attention. There's other things that I was doing for a long time, like business pursuits that I felt like, you weren't as big of a part of. And I'm just like, we're kind of in a season where we're dialing down a lot of those things that are really separating us. And not 100%, but I think more than we had in the past.
Yeah. Well, I think something you touched on also, like who's on your team. Gender is just one aspect, but like it's like over and over again, I am blown away by who God has put on our team. And as they get older and older and older, you're still seeing it. It's just because their personality is, formed so much when they're little. Like it's still as they get older, you're seeing their giftings come out. You're seeing the way that they respond to a new situation, the way that they're taking on new responsibilities, the way they are willing to do X, Y, and Z. And it's fascinating to watch. But then also the special needs, like you mentioned, because I think that there's like this aspect of like each of us have our blind spots. Each of us have our ways in which we are special needs, so to speak. And so I think as a parent, it's very important to make sure your expectations are in line with who God put on your team. Because I think it's easy to create this expectation or this ideal or this thing, and you're always trying to reach it and you're never hitting it and you're so disappointed. And like that trickles down to the kids and they can feel it. And I think I know because I've tried it. So like coming from the bottom up where you start like, you're looking at this baby, you're looking at this 10-year-old, you're looking at this 15-year-old and you're saying, who are you? And why did God put you on my team, like our team? And a lot of times it's to teach us things. For me, I feel like I have learned so much from each one of my kids and like deep things from them, just from their personalities or the way that the ways that they're tender and need, like they're vulnerable and need protection, the ways that they're strong and bold, and the ways that that God has just uniquely wired them, that has sometimes can be a challenge for me, and meaning it rubs me the wrong way, and I have to figure out how to navigate that, and then what I need to sometimes it's me needing to repent of something that I like an expectation I'm having, and sometimes it releases us into something new, and it's beautiful, and we never would have thought of it without this person and all these things. So who God has put on your team and taking the time over the course of years to discover who they are is really valuable.
Yeah, there's a kind of a radical acceptance in that. I know sometimes people are almost afraid when they think about, what if my kid has a special need, or what will this do to our family? And what it'll do is make it really obvious what your family mission is. So
Yeah.
don't be afraid of God choosing things for your family. There's so much that we get to pick. There's so many things that we have influence over. But it's crazy to think that when that baby comes out, you have no control. And this is one of the reasons. I mean, I hate the idea of like genetic engineering or whatever kind of crazy
Mhm.
dystopian thing we might be getting into with that. But it's like you just want God to control the womb. You want God to tell like there's so much freedom in that. And I think we need to embrace that much more as families. And I think to the extent that you really understand that I want to identify more with my family. I want my team to be architected by God himself. Why do you want to exert so much control over that? And so again, there's a lot of realms that we get to control, that you get to have a huge vote in. But when that conception occurs, it's over. Like God is now in control, and you're along for the ride. You know, you're going to get that baby, and that baby is going to belong to you and to your family no matter what, and you're going to be linked, tied to that human being for the rest of that baby's life. One of the things that I don't know why this really struck me. There's an atheist who was describing. He's like obsessed. Can't remember his name. I've like listened to tons of his talks, but he's obsessed with the whole question of consciousness. And he said this thing recently that I just like was blown away. He said, we don't know what consciousness is. I've been studying it my whole life. He described it incredibly well. Like we don't know what it means for like we don't know where it comes from. We can't create a computer that's conscious. We may never be able to create anything conscious. It may be something that's just way beyond reality or our ability to control. He said, but there is one thing we can do. We can create new portals into consciousness. And the interviewer was like, how? He's like, by having children. That's
Oh,
like, that's true. Like
wow.
you're bringing into existence another being who has this incredible superpower, right? This ability to be conscious. Of course, as believers, we're like, they have a soul,
Yeah.
and they come from God. So yeah, that was a fascinating thing. So one of the things I wanted to ask you to, April, maybe to tease out a little bit, so Noah was facing an apocalypse. And if there was ever a family who could have justified being family as mission, it would have been Noah, right? Like the world's about to be destroyed. Like God,
Yeah.
don't give me anything else. Like if we're going to build a boat, let's just build a boat for my family, that in enough food to be able to survive whatever crazy apocalypse. But no, God gave them a mission that took 100 years of construction to create, to save the entire animal kingdom. And so he gave them these sons, and he gave them this blueprint, and the way the story goes is fascinating. So I think this idea of a unique family mission, we're all given the mission to be fruitful, multiply, and fill, subdue, and rule. But but I think that sometimes we're given, and I think if you really are asking for talents, like in the parable of the talents, God, give me more to steward. One of the things that God is likely to give you, and I think He does give most families, is an additional, to change society in this way, to like bless your city by starting, this kind of institution or whatever effort, movement, things like that. So, and I think that one of the things one of the myths that I think is really important to dispel is that when you do family uh, as mission, in other words, you're one of those kinds of people who are like, we're so worried about the world's, horrible things are happening. We're going to like collapse and circle the wagons and save our children from the dirty, bad things out there. You need to be incredibly wise and shrewd about how you're interacting and when you're exposing kids to things. But your family exists to take territory and in unique areas and in unique ways. And so I think it's really important to not fall into that fallacy as family as mission. But I think the great lie that I want to maybe tease out is people think that makes you a stronger family, and it doesn't. Like family on mission makes a stronger family than family as mission. When you take your family out together, it's really family and mission that really hurts families. It's when you separate the two. It's when the father or mother go off on their own and leave the family in the dust, that tends to weaken and break families apart. But family on mission, wow, like your kids are going to want to actually know, like, what's the most meaningful thing that we're about. I think sometimes the reason why some Christian families lose their kids is because their kids are like, this is so boring. Like, what are we
Yeah.
doing? What's the purpose of life? Like, I could save the world from climate change. Like, why wouldn't I do that? Like, so they're looking for a mission, and they're not being given one by their father, and
Mhm.
and so they're looking for meaning elsewhere, and that doesn't strengthen the family. So family as mission is a trap. Now there are seasons where your family's going to look that way when you have little kids and you're trying to survive, but I really hope that you
Right.
have this vision. Like, so I know you've thought a lot about this, especially as moms have come to you and said, well, I don't feel like we're doing a mission, like it's, what does that
Yeah.
mean right now with little kids? So yeah, how have you processed this?
Yeah. Well, I think when your kids are little and your family is young, keeping the mission small and attainable is a really good idea because then you can taste success and feel like what that was like. So I think sometimes when you think family mission, you think like, oh, we need to save the world or we need to end hunger or we need to,
Yeah.
you think something like massive. But the way it worked out for us was like when we went into the grocery store, my kids had the job of like waving at people and saying hi. And that was a mission because sometimes it was for us to bring light into the darkness, but sometimes it was like to help a child who might be labeled as shy really stretch and grow into being able to say hi to someone. And then like there could be the mission of if it can kind of be a goal, but also a mission of we are going to learn how to sit down on our bottoms at dinner time and we're going to learn how to eat with our forks. That's our mission. And the reason we're doing that is because we would like to be invited into other people's homes for dinner. Or we would like to be able to take you on the road and not be miserable. We would like to travel. And so we're going to have to learn how to, you're going to have to learn how to obey my voice right away. And so those became a bunch of like mini missions for us that really helped us train our kids. It gave us a purpose for training our kids. And then for them, they felt like they were a part of something. And they were like, oh yeah, you guys, this is serious. We're going to the grocery store. It is time to get the smile on, like, so they had turned their attention outward and learn how to like wave and smile and say hi. And so they knew that they were a part of something bigger, that mom had an idea that they needed to kind of come under and that it felt good on the other side of it too,
Mm.
when someone would smile back at them or say, oh, well, hello to them, kind of surprised that that was such a reward for them. And then it gets into the much bigger things where I think if you stay in that where our family as mission, like us training our kids to sit around a table well, could have been considered family as mission because it's just us and we're working on something that's in our home. But we're going to take that thing and we're going to turn it outwards once we've got the training kind of under our belts.
Yeah.
And we're going to use that as to become like family on mission.
Mm.
And so that's translated itself over and over and over again as the kids have gotten older.
Need a blueprint to revise your family to be a multi-generational team on mission? The book Family Revision by Jeremy Pryor is the book that summarizes all the big picture ideas you hear on this podcast. Available on Amazon or familyteams.com.
Yeah. Well, I think you really, I think, have a vision for where our family exists to expand the kingdom of God, and I think that this is where maybe the nest idea of family, where you're trying to protect the chickies, is different from what it says in Psalm 127, that children are like arrows in the hand of a
Right.
warrior. And I think that you really had a vision for that. Like, okay, we're sharpening arrows to destroy the works of the enemy. Like this
Yes.
is this. So when you begin to think about children that way, like, we're building an army. We're not trying to like build little chickies so they can live their best life. Like, we don't know. We're here to make sure Satan lives his worst life. Like, we're here
Yes.
to take on that, to push against the boundaries of the kingdom of darkness and bring the kingdom of light into the world. You can do that with a 3-year-old. Like, this is what's amazing. Like, a lot of this does seem to come down to like a mother's, especially in the case you're describing, like a mother really knowing what she's doing. Like, you're building an army, and that looks different. It seems like it changes the whole tenor of motherhood when you're describing it that way.
Yeah, well, it's also like it starts with being willing to give up your body. Like I remember after my third one, I was just like, wow, okay, I'm older than I was the last time I did this, and 3 is a lot, and, all of that, and just being like, "No." Like, I felt very strongly that it was a 2-year commitment and that it was worth it. I felt like it was worth it to have another Pryor on the planet, to be another arrow for the kingdom, and that we needed to have so like, I also believe a big part of this is having more than 2 kids because, like, it's very hard to convince your kids when you get to, like, the teen years and stuff to stay a part of things, but it's this synergy of all of us doing things that really keeps people, like, interested, our own
Right.
kids interested in what the family is doing, and if we just had 2 kids and mom and dad and 1 kid are doing things, it'd be so easy to be like, "I don't care, it's no big deal." But
Right.
if it's like 6 people are doing something and I'm not, then it's like, "Well, hang
Totally.
on, I don't wanna miss
The
out."
vortex. Yeah, there's this
Yes.
gravity that the family has that sucks in those kids that otherwise might be too individualistic.
And
Yeah.
it's can be scary as a mom because I think we're nurturing. For me, I highly valued teaching our kids to get along with each other, like having sibling relationships that are going to last. And the idea of the nest where you're just kicking them out, you have this panicky feeling of like, I only have 8 more years. I only have 7 more years. I only have 6 more years. And we have to get it all figured out and they have to be like perfectly understanding everything by the time they're 18 because then they're just going to be gone. That's this feeling, and I really had to fight that many times because that is the message all around me.
Right.
But I think the Lord helped me fight that with this idea that like we are warriors. They
Yes.
are warriors. They are going to be arrows, and like our hands are God's hands, and we want him to be able to launch them. And that's the kind of launching I want, not like the nest where the bird does it, but I do want a launching from home base, our missions base, our outpost where the arrows are being launched.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah, I think it's we really champion this conversation around family size. And and part of I know if you're listening to this and you struggle with infertility, that can be incredibly confusing. Like, okay, why would God not bless us with more children? And if I do struggle with infertility, does that mean I think that's something that as we walked with lots of families through that challenge, that does take a lot of discernment. We know we have friends that have adopted a lot of kids because they're like, no, if God wants our family to be big. We've seen people pray and God heal. And then we've seen people that know that God does want them to have Abraham, Sarah had a terrible time having a child. And yet I think the big question is, is this your mentality? Like, are you primarily thinking about, I'm building this army and therefore that's the motive for how you're wrestling through a lot of these decisions around quote unquote family planning, or is it all just selfish and just based around your preferences?
Right. Yeah, well, I think that it is a scary thing. I think it takes a lot of trust in the Lord and his design and his plan to believe that that's okay to impart an identity to your children. It's okay to cast vision for them, that it's okay that it's actually a good thing to be on mission together. That is something that you need to be like proactive about. And like I know that, you know, even just walking into a restaurant with the 7 of us, it was like a force to be reckoned with. It was like, who are all these people? Oh, we have to put 2 tables together. Oh, we have, all the stuff that would happen with just our family just going into a restaurant to eat dinner or me going to the grocery store with all 5 of my kids. It's like, it is a noticeable thing these days, especially these days. So just the idea of like, you want to be I don't know, like force of nature, a force to be reckoned with, or something like that when it
Right.
comes to kingdom and having this like centrifugal force vortex thing of the kids and their desire to be with us and their desire to have a conversation with us, the fact that they can look us in the eye and talk to us when they're 16 and 17 and like want to show me something or want to tell dad about this thing. And then we're in public and people are seeing that and there's just like mouths open and jaws dropping and we kind of forget that it's such a unique thing for people to see. But it's all part of the whole reason this is important is because Jesus is worthy. He's Messiah. He's coming again. He's going to be ruling and reigning. And we need to be equipped to know how to do that. And so we have to keep passing it on to the next generation. And they need to believe that Jesus is coming back in order for them to also buy in to the greater vision, the greater vision of like Genesis 1:28.
Totally. It reminds me of that line from that movie, "You've messed with the wrong family." It's like you have to picture that there is a force coming against all of us, your
Yes.
family, my family, our, the kingdom of God. And if you know that this is, back in ancient times, women that could birth a lot of children were kind of considered cultural heroes because their
Mhm.
ability, they were the ones who were ultimately ensuring the defense of the entire tribe. And I think we just underplay that for lots of reasons. It doesn't mean that that's every woman's job, but I think that should be, a normative desire for every woman. Like, wouldn't that be awesome, right? If God would allow me, like what Mary said when she found out that she could bear the Messiah. Wow, you know, would my Lord
Yeah.
favor me with that? And that there's an element there of how women do warfare through childbearing.
Are you following us on Facebook and Instagram yet? Look up @Family Teams to get even more free content and never miss out on event announcements.
So, yeah,
Yes.
that's a
Yeah.
really important thing for us to champion once again. That yeah, we're building a formidable family for the kingdom. So, yeah,
Yes.
man. All right. Well, thanks, April, for talking to me. And as you guys are hearing this, if you're interested in trying to uh, find out if your family has a unique mission, you can jump on the Substack article I just read, section of this book, and really try to journal through those three questions. One of the things I love seeing couples do is take on those three questions and then like have a date night and really deeply talk about it. Like, okay, what are the problems that really bother us that are unique? What are the places or events that are in our past? What are the makeup of this family? Why did God give us that kid? What do you think? This is a fun conversation to have as a couple. So I encourage you guys to take the time to do that if you haven't crafted a family mission statement, haven't really discerned maybe what that is. And I think it's important to constantly update that conversation as well as you learn more about your kids. Whoa, I didn't see that coming. Like that
Yeah.
might actually impact our family mission. Like, let's revisit that. So yeah, that's an important thing to do. Awesome. Well, thanks, April, for chatting about this today.
Sure.
Thank you for listening to Jeremy Pryor's podcast. Make sure you hit that follow button so you don't miss out on any future content. Follow Jeremy on Twitter and Instagram as well as his Substack blog, all linked in the description. See you next time.